How do you define the word success? Welcome to the Relive the Moments podcast. I'm John Lim. Today's guest is Ben Cukier, co-founder and partner at Centana Growth Partners with over 25 years of experience investing in financial technology. Ben has helped build and guide industry leaders from the boardroom to startup. His career began at the age 13 on the options exchange, and today he serves on boards of innovative companies like 401go, Jumio, and Zesty AI. For Ben, success means making a real impact, creating happy teams, lasting companies, and a strong family. He's a proud graduate of Penn and Stanford and lives by his words, plans are useless, planning is useful. Please welcome to the show a dear friend of mine, another fellow basketball player, a guy that I'd love to have on my team, Ben Cukier.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, man, it's finally exciting to get you in the chair. I know we have like a 6 months in the making here.
Well, I've tried to avoid it for as long as I could. But,
I know. I'm relentless. I get that. Yeah. Listen, I like winning. I like having my winning partners on the show and sharing these moments. We have a lot of winning moments on the basketball court, thankfully. Okay, forget
especially
the new
when
algorithm.
We play together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you and I are together. Okay, I'm going to take our beautiful commissioner's algorithm from ChatGPT and continue to break it every time we play, where I think that our game is going to be even because we often dominate.
I like it.
Primarily due to the fact that you set the best pick in the basketball game ever.
It doesn't actually hurt the fact that you can make shots and I can't, so I know my role.
Running the floor, though. Okay, so for everyone watching this from our basketball crew, we'll talk about the fact that the rumor was you never were able to hit a three-point shot. And as soon as that rumor came out, you literally came to the gym the very first time, took the ball, shot a three-pointer, and made it, and squashed that rumor.
I did, and I am never going to take a three-point shot again in that gym. It's just my drop the mic moment.
It totally is. But that has a big testament, I think, that when people start watching this, a big testament to who you are, who I've gotten to know. So I start off the show by asking everybody, how do you define success?
You know, and that was the prep question for this. And I have to admit, that's a really tough question for me to answer. And part of it is it's changed for me so much over time. You know, if you asked me what it was when I was first out of college, it would have been like, get a great job, make a lot of money. And then when I got married, it's like raise kids, have them go play D1 sports, go to an Ivy League college, get these excellent jobs. And what I've realized over time is a lot of what I thought was success actually isn't success, and it doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean. And I wish I knew what the answer was today. I know what my goals are, right? But is that what I consider success or not? I don't know. And one of the cool things about life is it just keeps changing. Some of it is the goalpost has moved, right? What I thought would be a great job, my dream job, coming out of school at 21, turned out I did well, but now I started my own company and all of a sudden now I have investors, I've got employees, I've got partners, and that goalpost has moved partially for me because there's all the financial and just ego benefits of doing well. But it's also weird, like when you've got investors, you owe them a duty, right? And so for me, it's universities, endowments, healthcare foundations. I've got to do well by them too. And so it's some amount of pressure and some amount of challenge, but it's fun too.
I want to come back to that at some point. We'll talk about how you approach your clients in investing, because I think as a private equity guy, there's two sides of the fence for private equity. You got private equity people that I've seen and come through that it's all about the money, okay? And it's about, yes, I need to grow the company, but I need to grow the company, my company and my brand and so forth. And yes, to do that, I have to help someone grow some of their company. But I always talk to you about it, and we'll talk about this in more detail. Like, you always come across not only genuine, like as a founder of companies, you're the kind of guy that I want to say, hey man, invest in me, because you're a founder operator, I feel, more than you are a typical private equity person. Before we dive into any of that, you said something about success that I found fascinating right now, where you talked about what you found was unsuccessful. So throughout the years when you were defining success, from your high school to college to the first job to then getting married to the kids playing D1, and although that none of your children played D1
or college athletics or high school athletics,
except they found a planet, but we'll talk about that as well on the show as well.
And actually, that's not true. They did play high school athletics.
Yes, yes. I played basketball with one of your sons. You know, he's not two left. He's not 2 left feet. Okay.
No, he's better. He's better than Dad is.
He's
also
good.
3 inch taller than Dad.
Yeah,
which helps too.
and he's coordinated.
Well, yeah, unlike Dad.
Right. Well, he gets that from Mom. We all know.
Mom, the mailman. It's all good.
What are some of the things that you would say that you thought were successful that later on in life you sit here today and now recognize that was unsuccessful?
Look, part of what, when you first come out, or at least when I first came out of school, you thought was success is just this making the most money. And I'm not saying money is bad. I like it, probably as much as the next guy. But it's not all about that at all, And when I started Centana, I was at a very successful firm where the path ahead of me was really, really good, but I was unhappy. And it was a real cognitive dissonance, right? It's like, if I stay, I could make oodles of money. It's a technical term. And if I go start Centana, I might make a lot of money, but it could fail. But it's unlikely to be as financially successful as staying in any case.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I wasn't happy at my prior firm.
Why weren't you happy?
There were a lot of reasons. Some I won't go into, but it just wasn't the place for me. And part of it was what we were doing just wasn't as fun as I thought it could be, or as satisfying as I thought it could be. They were looking at large companies and auctions, and you became much more of a processing job than helping entrepreneurs grow. And one of the passions that I have is working with younger companies and helping them solve problems. And doing it, rolling up your sleeves and getting down into the plans. And as you get to larger companies, you start to get more removed from that just definitionally, because there's more people in the way. Each individual can have less impact. Each board member has less impact, and other people probably were much better at it than I was. And I'd spent my life working at this particular stage, and I liked it. And so I didn't want to go on to those larger companies. And so made what at the time was an agonizing choice. Like, I look back at it, it was months of decision time, and shout out to my darling bride, because she weighed it, listened to me and said, it's a no-brainer. You want to do this, go do it.
All right, let's frame this. How old are you at this point?
I was 42.
Okay, so 42. All 3 of your children were born at that point.
All three children born, young children, still in elementary, middle school at the time.
And you're weighing this decision. You're agonizing over this decision for months. And obviously, you're coming home to your wife. You're sharing the stories. You're sharing your unhappiness. And did you already know you wanted to open your own company, or you just were talking about the unhappiness and the company started to birth itself? How did that happen?
At this point, I knew I wanted to start my own company. Had my partner at Centana, I had been working with for 12 years prior to that. The choice was either stay at my current company or go do something entrepreneurial with him.
Okay. So you always had that entrepreneurial bug driving you.
Yeah, and that's been my career for the last 30 years. I work with entrepreneurs, but it's really weird. Like, I've worked with entrepreneurs. I sit there and, you can empathize with them or sympathize with them because you understand from an abstract point of view what they go through. But, and that's why I changed it from empathize to sympathize. You sympathize, but until you've actually gone through that entrepreneurial journey, quit your job, gone from getting a paycheck every couple of weeks to writing checks every couple of weeks, at least for me, I never realized the sheer terror of doing that.
Listen, I'm so grateful for our game of basketball. I'm grateful for basketball. It's given me a tremendous amount of life. I'm so grateful for our game of basketball. One of the reasons that I'm super grateful is because of you. Like, you don't fund anything that I do, but you fuel my growth with that same sympathy. We talk on the sidelines. Not only do you genuinely care about how I'm doing in life and the personal side, but you're always coming to me with the allowing me to share my trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur and being a founder and finding that own check, and always passing off good wisdom. Like, I can easily tell that you're not just listening to a friend that you play ball with. Like, you're listening as if you were a partner in my company or your capital was fueling that side. And that's what I think is one really amazing thing why I wanted to make sure we got into this interview process. Matter of fact, you're the credit to how the Winning Moments brand that I had last year, that was the last brand that was sitting in my pile of brands with the NFC technology. You get the credit for a conversation we had that showed me a pathway that it can be a lot more than just interactive swag, that we can build a fundraising platform and go out and help these kids raise a ton of money to stay on the court. And it was a natural conversation we had during March Madness.
See, and I'm honored and touched that you say that, because I actually felt almost the opposite way, that I get more out of those conversations than you do. Like, for me, the basketball games overall, that's my synagogue, my church, my place of Zen, where, you can go, and it's one of the only places you can go and like leave the day-to-day worries behind and sit down with a bunch of awesome guys. You're out there hustling on the court, and when you're not, you're having these awesome conversations. So I feel like I get much more out of those games than I give, and you're a large reason why.
Listen, man, I appreciate that, and you give a lot. So I feel the same way you feel. That's very reciprocal. And now let's bring it back to you and talk about the company. So the name, where does this name come from?
It's ancient Sanskrit, and it means the future of financial services.
I had a feeling, Claudio, that it has to do with history.
No, that's actually total bullshit, by the way.
Okay. I had a feeling that had to do with history. Okay. Now let's see what happens here.
The actual story, when we were starting the firm, we sat around, and it was over the Christmas holidays, and I have to preface this, I might have been drinking a little bit. And we had this list of names. Actually, the name we liked best was 11 Capital, because have you ever seen Spinal Tap?
No.
Oh, so in Spinal Tap, there's this whole scene where they're talking about this amp, and Rob Reiner asks, "Why is this so special?" And he's like, "'Cause it goes to 11." And he's like, "Isn't that just the same as going to 10, but changing the scale?" He's like, "No. All the others go to 10, and this one goes to 11." My partners decided that was not serious enough of a name, but I thought it would have been awesome. But we came up with this term. Actually, one of our colleagues suggested it, that actually is a Buddhist term for the higher level of being that we all seek. And we talked about it, and it was awesome. And so we said, we're going to name the firm after that. And I went to register the domain, and I fat fingered it. So as opposed to Centana, which is the Buddhist term, I typed in Centana and bought the domain name. And next day I realized what I did, and I called up my partners like, "Oh, I did this, we've got Centana, let me see what I can do." And we talked about it, and like, "Oh, Centana actually sounds even better." And we did the typical searches. It means absolutely nothing. The closest association phonetically is Santana.
Yeah.
Which, it's not that negative.
I mean, that's pretty positive. It's a good theme song.
Yeah, it sounds vaguely financial, but it means absolutely nothing. So not even in ancient Sanskrit.
Yeah, yeah. So from ancient Sanskrit to ancient Buddhist, you then turned a beautiful word and you westernized the word, let's say it, okay? And you brought it over here, and now that word forever will mean,
The future of financial services.
exactly,
There we go.
exactly. Coming out of New York now. That's a funny story. Was it during one of your famous poker games?
No, that was it was over the winter holidays. I was home with the in-laws, who I love dearly, and was drinking with my father-in-law and just sitting around the table, and then hopping on. This was before Zoom, hopping on conference calls with my partners.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Did you always want to be a financial guy when you were a kid?
No, right. So I grew up in the era. You might even be too young for this. L.A. Law.
I know LA Law.
Susan Day, Harry Hamill. It was my dream growing up to be a lawyer.
I do appreciate you notice how young I look and say I'm too young for LA Law. But yes, no, you're not, buddy, you're not really that old, okay?
It's half a decade. It makes a difference.
Fair enough. So LA Law.
Yeah.
You're watching LA Law. How old are you when you got introduced to LA Law?
LA Law was roughly from when I was 13 to 18 on TV, so high school.
Okay, so in high school.
Yeah.
All right, you're a kid in high school.
And I saw these lawyers changing the world. I mean, they were negotiating deals. They were buying companies, selling companies. It was awesome. It was the dream for what I wanted to do.
So you're in high school. You're a smart kid, obviously. From what I know about you now, that just happened later on in life. You're watching LA Law. Now you decide you're going to become a lawyer. Did you join the debate team? Did you do anything that led you to that litigation side of the world? Or what did you do that you now knew you were going to be a lawyer that saves the world?
I did join the debate team.
Okay.
And here's another fact you might know about me. I was one of the top debaters in the country back in the day.
Do they have debate competitions, like national ones?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So in high school, like every weekend, I'd be traveling, starting early on some places, around Illinois. And then by the time my senior year, I was flying across the country every weekend, competing in different debate tournaments.
Okay, wait. I need to get some details here, right? We all understand the spelling bee because it's always on TV in that case, right? But the debate team is how many people are debating at the same time?
So it depends on the style of the debate. The style I did, it was 2 people per team.
Okay. So you and a partner. Was it always the same partner?
It wasn't always the same partner, but generally throughout the year, I had the same partner.
Right. Okay. So you're going on this run. It's you and a team. Okay. You and a person that build the team. Do they give you a debate topic? Like walk us through a little bit of how this actually works. I find this fascinating.
So the style of debate I did was called policy debate. And so if you wonder why I never saw the inside of a gym in high school, it's because I was spending all my time in the law library, or random debate tournaments, et cetera, et cetera. That's my excuse, at least. There's one topic for the year, but it's a really broad topic. Like the United States should do something to decrease overcrowding in prison. And it can be just about anything. One side, the affirmative, presents a case. The other side argues against it. You go back and forth, and inevitably in this style of debate, something leads to nuclear war or the destruction of the world, and therefore you shouldn't do it. It was a little hyperbolic looking back at it, but it was totally fun. It was an amazing group of people that you meet. Some of them politician judges today.
Do you stay on the same side? If you get put on one side during the debate?
You alternate.
You alternate.
So there's somewhere between 5 to 10 rounds on the debate tournament, and then it goes into traditional eliminations, and you flip. Theoretically, you do half on one side, half on the other. One side comes up with an argument, a case, and it could be anything within the broad topic.
So I love this because LA Law was one my grandmother watched with me, and then Law and Order.
So
right?
I think you just called me like you're sympathetic with your grandmother. So
listen, she is my favorite person who is no longer in this world today. So yeah, you're in high company.
Yeah. I'm honored to be up there with Abuela.
I appreciate that. So I too wanted to be a lawyer, okay, until I recognized how much reading and comprehension you had to do. Broke that part. But I love the debating. I love the side of it, right? So that case. So now you're debating on this stage. How do they pick a winner?
There's a judge, and they follow the arguments, and they are keeping track of the arguments, and each argument, at the end they decide, was it responded to? Was it responded to well? And who won? And then they weigh it, and there's a decision. And it starts off where there's one judge in the room, and then as you get to the finals and elimination, it's 3-5. I was in one place where there was 21 judges in the room.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy town. Okay, well, listen. You know what? Nothing against lawyers, but you are better suited where you are in the world, especially for my fellow entrepreneurs. On their behalf, we all thank you that you didn't become a lawyer. What made the change?
As we started off, like, success changed. And so I spent some time working with lawyers. Actually, I had applied to law school. I'd gotten in.
No surprise.
My senior year. And a really good friend of mine persuaded me, just, if I can say this, shits and giggles, go on to some informational interviews with companies.
Yeah, we have no FCC regulations. You could say what you want, buddy.
Fuck yeah. So I went to a bunch of these things, and I sat in some investment banks, and then I sat down at an information presentation from McKinsey. And all of a sudden, it's like everything that I saw in LA Law, they said they did. We meet with CEOs, we help them think about deals, we help them think about strategy, and you don't have to go to 3 years of law school to do it.
And pass the bar. That's the other thing.
The passing the bar wasn't. I am. One of my skills is like especially standardized tests. I do well on them.
All right. So now that you said that,
I can't shoot a 3 except for once.
You did. You shot the 3.
But I can do.
But you can't say that anymore.
But I can take a standardized test like nobody can.
You cannot say you can't shoot 3 anymore because you came, you saw one shot, nailed it.
It's 100% record.
Right. Exactly. You leave it there. But now that you brought this up, and I have to ask because you're standardized testing, did you get a perfect score on your SATs?
I did not.
Yeah, but he can hit a 3. Just so you know, guys, he can hit a 3. Okay. More importantly, by the way, if he had a perfect score,
that's why they say lies, damn lies, and statistics.
If he had a perfect score, I guarantee you he'd be more proud of the 3 he hit after the rumor that he couldn't do it than the perfect score on the SATs.
And you're absolutely right? Yeah. The definition of success changes for me. Like if I have a good play now, or I hit a 3 when someone says you can't do it, that brings me more joy than closing an extra deal or certainly like getting a good score on the SAT would have gotten me.
Right. You're right.
Success changes.
It continues to change. We'll try to get back to like what's the next success for you in the basketball game, considering you already hit the 3. But before we do any of that, you mentioned that you love working with entrepreneurs, and I can feel that from you as an entrepreneur. And it was fascinating what you said about the big business. It made me think about like, look, you're an entrepreneur, and then at some point you become a CEO, or you never become a CEO because the business was bought or sold. But when the company becomes really big, that's when entrepreneurs become CEOs, or CEOs get injected. But working with entrepreneurs, where's that passion come from to help these really young kids, I call us? I like to believe myself as young again, but the entrepreneurs that take that risk and they put themselves out there. Where's the passion that you have that drives you to want to work with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, first of all, entrepreneurs don't have to be young. There are lots of folks who've had very successful careers who go out and start a company. For me, it really is the fascination with the idea that someone can have a very successful career or a good career in front of them, and they decide, fuck it, I'm going to go out and I can do it better, and I'm going to risk it all in order to do it. And I love that passion. I love it better when it's surrounded by execution and a team and everything else. And part of what I help them do is figure out how do you take that passion and really institutionalize it and get that better team, et cetera. So, I am less good at the creative side of it, like coming up with that idea. Then let's take this idea, that already has some meat on it, because I don't do I'm not three guys in a garage. There's already a real business there. And, I call my business, how do you grow the shit out of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you really take that, something that's working and make it work at scale? And I think I do that decently well. And I love like the passion that the entrepreneurs have, and the ones who really want to grow it. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're putting gasoline on the fire. You need a fire to be burning. You need the embers to be hot. You need it where the fire is not going to just go out and it's on its last legs. Like how I understand your world is you got a nice fire. It's been there for a while, okay? And now that entrepreneur needs fuel to take that fire and make it burn hotter, stronger, longer, and that's where your specialty lies in coming in and doing that.
Yeah, and I use a slightly different analogy, but remarkably the same fuel, because I say they've built the car, I bring the fuel. Yeah,
and I think, listen, for entrepreneurs, it's really tough. You take that risk that you mentioned, and then when you get your company to a level of where I believe I remember your investment world is at 10 plus million, right? When they make it.
Yeah.
So you get yourself to a 10 plus $1 million company. You're there. You've made it over the hump. But there's such another big hump to go, and finding people that you can trust, that are like you, that very much, hey, I'm going to bring the fuel, but I'm also not going to drive your car, but I'm going to be in the backseat when you need so, and I'm not going to be a backseat driver. It's a rare trait that I think, at least I have found throughout all of New York and all the conferences I've been to and talking to people. I never raised private equity money, but the private equity money that I've seen go into people, typically it's like, hey, I'm going to sit in the backseat, then all of a sudden they become a backseat driver. And then eventually the entrepreneur gets burnt out and the private equity guy becomes a driver or puts a different driver in place. And your passion behind the people is what's always impressed me.
Well, thank you. No, and I know it can't be done without the people. I've done it once. And I have to tell you, I will never do it again, because it's hard to do, right? And that's part of why I love working with the entrepreneurs, because I understand how hard it is to do. And I've worked with some guys, this is their second, third, fourth startup, and I have nothing but admiration for them. Well, maybe I think they need a little bit of head checking, because to do it the second and third time, I couldn't do it again.
Which company did you do? Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey.
So this is Centana, right?
Okay.
So
it's still ongoing.
It's absolutely still ongoing. I also wouldn't do it again, because I'm still got a long way to go on this. Folks don't think about, you started a VC. That's not an entrepreneurial company, but it actually is, right? I had a great paycheck, and I went out with, I could do it better. I could form this better. And I had to go out and convince investors without any companies, without infrastructure, that they should give me money. And at the same time, I had to convince companies, even though I didn't have any investors or capital, that they should trust me and make it all come together at that same time.
Yeah, you're balancing the chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
At the exact same time, having two different conversations. And yeah, what you did is 100% entrepreneurship. I don't care what anybody says. You left your job, like you said. You had to then form your own paycheck. Okay. And yeah, your job was to, hey, I need to go out and get money. That's my sale. I need to take that money and then invest it into the right people. And those people have to be right and have to have success. Otherwise, I can never go back to get more money, because my success rate is 0. Therefore, why invest in me? So I think it is 100% accurate that you are an entrepreneur, and a very successful one, because the company is still thriving.
And you described my job probably better than I did. So if this thing doesn't work out, you can come work at Centana.
Listen, going from catching you in a WeWork office once when you parked there for a minute before you guys got your other office.
Oh, it was years.
Yeah. A minute. It's a New York minute, right?
It's a New York minute. And we probably would have stayed there until the time they decided they wanted to give free men's haircuts to everybody in the building. And so we had a big investor coming in for a final pitch, and there was a line of rowdy 20-year-olds around the corner waiting for their free haircut as this investor had to fight their way through it. And we're like, okay, it's time to get a real office.
That's listen. Round 2 of the podcast, we'll definitely tell that story of the investor. Did he invest in the company?
It was a she, and one of our largest investors.
Now I could see her in the WeWork office trying to get through the line of all these punk kids for getting a free haircut, and her looking at all these people like, what am I doing here? And that was your first investment meeting with her?
That was our first investment meeting with her.
Is she still an investor today?
She's still an investor today.
See,
so maybe we should have stayed.
No. I think that's like you saying I'm not going to shoot a 3 again. That's kind of the point where you drop the mic. Like, yeah, we got this. Congratulations. Maybe, guys, it's time to get an office, okay, and get out of the 20-year-old.
And that was the conversation.
I love it. Okay, so how do you maintain this success with all that you have going on?
Well, you just keep redefining the idea of success, and then it's easy to maintain.
But how do you translate that with your partners?
Part of it is, we're still hungry and young, and on a relative basis at least, and want to keep building. Part of it is the way we've defined success. Now we have our investors, right? And these are, people think of, oh, you're a VC, you're a private equity, you're just evil. But the folks we work for, our investors are pension funds, college endowments, hospital foundations. They're real people behind it. Individuals like you, like me, like my parent, like my wife's parents are actually, their pension fund is invested in funds like me. And so the passion for what we do is driven a large part by the folks we're working for. So when we get good returns, that helps our investors, the individuals behind our investors, retire better.
Right.
Gets me up every morning. And by the way, it's a lot of pressure too, right? You can't mess it up, because if you mess it up, someone's retirement's going to be a little bit worse off because of what you did.
So I love that you said that, because I was automatically going to go down this Madoff path of where it's one thing. Okay, everybody's hard-earned money should be protected at every time someone takes it. Okay, I just finished reading the book, The Crash of 1929, Andrew Sorkin, and he does a phenomenal job in this book of outlining the days. Like, I felt like I was in the 1920s going through the days, and I could feel like I could see myself on Wall Street and see everybody being so happy and walking around and, being from New York City, being able to go down there. And I think of like going to a steakhouse and you see everybody there with their bonuses, and I'm sure how they looked and so forth. And the House of Morgan, as they called it back then. And it was now like, I think about how when you talk about institutional money, not just numbers on a piece of paper, but people's pension. All right, you bring your father-in-law, your in-laws into the conversation where, although the pension fund might have hundreds of millions of dollars, and for people who don't have money that way, it's crazy money, right? It's like the lottery when it hits $1 billion. But that money has to support people's retirements that made from minimum wage to an okay living. They never made that great living where they were making $1 million a year or something of that nature. Like they worked their tail off for 20, 30 years, and that pension fund has to support it. So when you take money from that type of institution, does it carry more weight than if you take it from a hedge fund that's sitting on the same amount of money? If you treat them the
we
same?
don't take any money from hedge funds, so it's hard for me to say that. But we've got money from family offices, and who I would presume. While I don't know all the details behind them, I'd presume they're individuals that are wealthier. To us, the customers are the customers, right? And we owe a teacher in one of our funds the same duty we owe the family, et cetera. We are fiduciaries on behalf of them, and it's our job to make them money. The impact may be higher to one than the other, but I don't know enough to judge it. I just know it's a high impact, and they've trusted me to do it. And every time we lose money, which thankfully doesn't happen very often, it hurts personally.
I can tell sitting across from you, and everybody watching should know that, like, you can feel in this room how much you care. Like, we've never really talked about your business on the sidelines of grabbing money and where you invested. I know enough about your business of where you like to invest, how much money that the company needs to make, and those things. But to see your passion behind it and say the words that when I lose money, it hurts. Not because I lost money, not because the company, took a loss in this case, because that's going to happen, right? No one's perfect. But because I feel I've disappointed the teacher, all right? Not the pension fund. You said it, the teacher that put their hard-earned money into this case. Like, you have a level of responsibility that I don't see in most investors. Where do you think that came from? And when? And when did you, was it when you were a certain age, or mom or dad, or did something happen? Like, let's relive a moment that you think that the source of that weight that you feel if you lost money, where does that personality come from?
Yeah, I'm not sure it came from any particular moment. I've spent the last 20 years, both at this firm and the other firm, like working with our investors and understanding the mission. And I have to admit, the first time when I first joined the private equity, it was like, oh, this is fun to buy companies, help them grow, without actually understanding the business of private equity, like who the customer is. But over time, you meet the pension funds, the endowments, and the teacher behind it is important, or the cancer research that they're doing is important. And, meeting with the pension fund itself and meeting with the endowment managers, one of the things that always struck me is how passionate those individuals are about their customers as well, right? We have big Ivy League university, sitting on billions of dollars, and you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like they look at that, and it's not, oh, we've got billions and billions of dollars. It's, we have research to fund, we have scholarships to fund. Every dollar that we make actually goes to support students, and they can tell you off the top of their head like what their biggest initiatives are and what the dollars are going to support. And spending time, years and decades, that passion has just rubbed off, because you understand, wow, it's not just about building companies, which is a great part of the job as well, but it's about protecting these great missions that all of our investors have.
I think that's great for the audience to hear, because typically when you hear about an Ivy League school that has billions of dollars in endowment, the average person, it's very easy for the average person to go through, well, they're entitled, or they're elite, or who cares, because they don't care about anything else but themselves. But to hear you talk about the passion behind the pension fund, right, or the endowment that you're talking about, and their passion for what they're doing, and then your passion to protect what they're doing and help grow what they're doing by bringing them a good return, I feel that gets lost on Main Street, and rightfully so, with all the news and everything that happens. But to have that inside view, it's pretty powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we appreciate that there are people like you that are out there doing that, who care about the Main Street person, because I think often Main Street gets left out in these conversations. But obviously, behind the scenes, there are people like you that focus on both. So I ask as we start to wrap up the podcast, I ask everybody the same question. What is your favorite quote?
So it's a quote by, it's widely attributed to Eisenhower. It says, "Plans are useless, planning is useful."
Plans are useless, planning is useful. I love that. I also love Eisenhower. He was one of our. I only look at presidents in a way like, okay, you got top half, bottom half. He's a very interesting cat. I think when it comes down to top half of presidents, not every general automatically became a good president. Those who actually made it that way. But was it him or the quote that caught you?
It's the quote.
Okay.
And it's applicable in lots and lots of different ways. In my job of sitting on boards, every business has a plan, right? And the only thing I can tell you about my company's plans, my own plan, is it's going to be wrong, right? You can never hit everything exactly, and if you do, you might be Bernie Madoff, because that's the only company I know that's hit their plan.
Yeah.
Right. The purpose of
Until he didn't.
Yeah. Until he didn't. The purpose of a plan is it's a thought process. It's if this happens, then that happens. Right. You can make an Excel spreadsheet say anything you want it to say. But the problem is reality gets in the way eventually, right? Even for Bernie. So the process of putting a plan together is so much more important than the actual plan that comes out on it, because the only thing in the end is that piece of paper is not going to be right.
Right, but going through the process is right, which is what I love.
Exactly. It's a variation. I think Muhammad Ali says, you can have a plan for the fight, but that ends the first punch. It's all the same thing. So it's not the plan for the fight. It's what happens after that first punch that's really important.
I was going to quote a different boxer, and I will quote a different boxer, and I could now just see Claudio in Ben's office one day, like you have the Eisenhower quote up there. Okay, it says Eisenhower, and then this next quote right next to it, okay, which says every man's got a plan until he gets punched in the face.
Mike
Tyson.
Right.
So those two battle-tested, okay, totally different human beings capture both of those very well. And
Mike Tyson was actually just paraphrasing Eisenhower. Who knew?
Who knew?
I'm not sure Mike Tyson knew.
I'm not sure he would even know now. But I always love that quote because you're exactly right. Every good plan is wrong. Okay? You just want to get pieces of that plan right. And if you get enough pieces right, you can put together a winning game, a winning team, a winning moment, right? Anything that has to do with success is just being right most of the time, not all the time.
Yeah, well, look, and if you take it back to high school sports, right, it's why, or any kind of sports, it's why you have practice, right? I have different tools in my tool set, and can I put them together in combinations that matter and help, right? And so if you just plan running to one side of the court to the other, straight line, which I may be accused of doing, and you don't have any variation, you don't do anything differently, it's really hard to win with just that, right? But if you have different moves in your bag, it helps you win, right? And that's the whole planning process. And you put it together, if then, they do this, I do this, they do this, something else, I do something else, having thought through those things in advance as opposed to having to do it all on the fly and, pardon this phrase, make shit up.
It's why I love having my basketball team, because very few people are constantly thinking throughout the game. And when you and I get to the sideline, it's, okay, listen, either you ask me what's going on, all right, what do you see out there? Or you'll tell me, hey, listen, you're moving too fast. Wait, come back, pull this up, do this. So you've already analyzed it, and I absorb it really well. Okay, good. You're right. Let me adjust this. Let's put it this way and do it that way. So that analytical brain, the if-then statements, I love that you said it that way, because you translate that on the basketball court as well. So before we wrap up the podcast, is there anything you're working on that you want to share? Or is there anyone that you'd love to talk to if they're looking for an investor? Who should they call? What size should they be? Like, how do we get to Ben, and what is Ben looking for?
So what I'm working on the personal front, which has actually become much more important, our youngest, as you know, suffers from really bad migraine headaches, and it's been very challenging for them to go through the normal public school process. So we've had to pull them out of public school. We found this wonderful school up in Connecticut called Cahal, which has been very accommodating, and so helping them raise money, think about how to navigate the whole process of getting districts to pay to support students who can't be supported in district. So that's one of the personal things that we have been thinking about a lot, and frankly, it's just at the beginning part of that journey, and some of it is a financial contribution. But it's, working with our youngest has also changed the definition of success. It's not that they are not a successful person, because what they're going through to fight through it has been, it's been on one hand heartbreaking, but on the other hand, total admiration for this kid who's had to go through pain, sometimes to get out of bed and get to school, and still manages to get through it. And so how do you support people like that? Personal passion project of mine. If you want to find me in business, on the web, Centana.com with a C.
Yeah, with the C.
And my last name, Cukier, with a C.
And I think what you said about your youngest, Noah, and what they go through with these migraines and these headaches is a real thing. For anyone who's ever had a headache and never had a migraine, just think about that times 100, where you might not be able to see, you might not be able to get up and walk. And I feel that as a parent. We talk about Noah here and there about how it's going, and in one aspect, you want to just take the pain away of that child, and I can imagine praying to God of like, hey, listen, just I'll take the pain. Just give this poor kid a chance. I've lived a long life. Give it to me, whatever. And on the other hand, having the admiration to watch them push through it, do the best they can to live a normal life, be successful in life, not just lay in bed all day long and just give up. It's just, I have so much empathy for you and your wife, and I love just putting it together. So send us the link to where people can donate money to the organization. Or if you're building an organization that eventually needs money to get to the districts or a program, we'd love to promote it, and I'll put it all on the YouTube channel and everywhere we are.
I will shoot that over to you.
No, we appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks. So that's our show. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to Relive the Moments on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Share this. Recommend anybody that you think we can share their story. Every story counts. The purpose of the podcast is to relive moments of all these amazing people, to then hopefully you as the audience get something out of it. We're going to constantly continue to grow and help everybody that we can in all the ways that we can. Thank you. Appreciate having you, Ben.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it.